Hello, everybody. Welcome to another 12 Days of the Comic Source presents Bad Idea. Here to celebrate another Bad Idea book as we count down to Christmas. It's a Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. As I said yesterday, or maybe on some of the previous episodes, I'm getting to re-experience these books. I haven't read them since they first came out, and I had a chance to check them out. And yeah, I sort of forgot just how amazing all of these books are. And Rocky's getting a chance to read them for the first time. So we've been on a bit of a streak where every time we read a book, you're like, oh, this is my new favorite Bad Idea. So you said that yesterday when we reviewed Monster Kill Squad. Where does Pirate Queen stack up?
Pirate Queen is pretty good. It's pretty good. It's a different genre, but I really enjoyed it. You know, it's funny. I've read a lot of Peter Milligan's work over the years. Especially, he's done a lot of he's done more than a few Vertigo titles over the years. But none of them really stood out. And I actually do remember seeing Pirate Queen in the previews. For some reason, I do remember seeing this in previews, and I thought I had ordered this, but obviously now I know why I never got my retailer never got it for me. But in any event, I I like the premise of it. I like the premise of it. I thought it was a good story. I thought it was a solid story. I was particularly impressed with Adam Pollina's art again. And yeah, no, I like the main character. Is it my number one? Man, I would say it's a solid maybe third or fourth, but man, we've got some pretty good titles that it's going up against. But she's probably the most enticing female character to date out of all the Bad Idea characters so far.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I remember when I read this. First of all, pirate comics are awesome, and it's not like, I mean, we all know what pirates are, right? We know the idea of pirates, and when you're telling a pirate story, it's sort of hard to have it be wholly original because it's going to fall into some of the same cliches, some of the same tropes. And they are cliches and they are tropes for a reason, right? Because they're very much rooted in the truth about pirates. You know, it's a brutal life, it's a short life, and there's oftentimes revenge and kind of a legacy feel. Those are just kind of the hallmarks of a pirate story, and this one's no different. So in that way, I kind of feel like Pirate Queen, much like Monster Kill Squad, was maybe the most traditional comic book story from Bad Idea. This one's kind of up there in that more traditional vein as well. Like if you like pirate comics, you're going to get a lot of what you expect. You're going to get some action on the high seas. You're going to get some ideas of revenge or vengeance or justice and that sort of thing. And this doesn't disappoint. You mentioned the art from Adam Pollina, and that's where I think this book really, really shines. We've had a couple of different Adam Pollina books so far that we've talked about. Obviously, we had Whalesville, where the art was very stylized. It was colored in a particular way. The detail, the cross hatching, the textures were done in a certain way that gave it this sort of old timey feel. And then he kind of flipped it. And even though it was recognizable as Adam Pollina, when he did the Last Resort story that was set in the far future and had more primary colors, again, still stylized, exaggerated anatomy and what have you, but still recognizable as Adam Pollina, but very different than what we saw in Whalesville. Now here, we're getting almost a third style. This, unlike Whalesville, especially when it came to the sea creature design, again, had a certain look and a certain feel. And then we saw a lot of exaggerated anatomy, like I said, in Last Resorts. And now here we get a much more realistic style. Not to say it's like, photorealistic or some sort of DC house style. It still is its own sort of textured and visceral style, but we don't get a lot of exaggerated anatomy.
Yeah.
We get a much more kind of traditional art style. And the colors by Tamra Bonvillain, while they're a little bit muted and give it kind of an old time feel, not in the same way that we saw in Whalesville, and certainly not the bright primary colors of the future that we saw in Last Resort. So this art style is kind of clearly its own thing. And I don't want to say this as a criticism at all, but the choice that he makes in terms of backgrounds, I think is really something to take note of. The backgrounds in this book tend to be, for the most part, relatively minimal, especially when the characters are outside on the deck of the ship. We just get sky and clouds for the most part. Some of the other scenes where they're inside the cabins of the ships and what have you, and then later when they're inside homes, you get some nice detail, and it brings some kind of lived-in feel, some realism to it. But the action in the book, which mostly takes place on these ships, on the decks of these ships, with the minimal background, what it does is it sort of forces the characters to the foreground even more. The your attention's not pulled off of it to any sort of background detail or anything like that, and it really gives a kind of a more intimate feel, almost like you're zoomed in on these characters. And I really appreciated that. I also thought the blacks were done really, really well. I mean, think of like probably the most famous pirate most people would know of these days in terms of seeing it in some visual medium is Captain Jack Sparrow, right? Johnny Depp from the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. And remember how he always had the eyeliner on and around the eyes were so dark? You notice like throughout the book, Tamra Bonvillain, and I'm sure it's from cues from Adam Pollina, and you see it on the cover there if you're watching this on YouTube. It's got that feel. It's got the feel of the dark eyes, almost like it's their version of a domino mask and their version of a way to hide their identity. So I appreciate that as well. And the last thing that I'll mention that I thought Peter Milligan did really well is the dialogue. It's not super flowery. It's not a lot of dialect where you have to kind of struggle to read it. But there's enough in his choices of vocabulary there to give it kind of a throwback feel, and also to give it the feel of pirates and the way they spoke back then. And it's not flowery language by any stretch of the imagination, but it has an authenticity to it. So you mentioned a very sexy main character, Monday Ryan, and definitely takes a different turn. I'm not exactly sure what Peter Milligan was getting. I mean, maybe he's a parent. I don't know. And just how much becoming a parent will change you. But that was a little surprising twist when she abandons her quest for revenge toward the end when her son is born. But this is a great story, very solid. I don't know that it rises to the level of, oh my god, it blew me away, like Monster Kill Squad or ENIAC or what have you. But it, like, in terms of a technically well put together comic, this one is right up there. And I'll give a lot of credit to both the vocabulary and the character work from Peter Milligan and the artwork from Adam Pollina. What else do you have to add, Rocky?
Well, I'm a lover of history, and I think one of the in the last 5 years, we've gotten a lot of horror comic books. The horror genres come back, and we've gotten a few books that deal with pirates, but not enough. And I realize how much I miss having a good pirate book. There's been a couple, but this is I really like. I remember El Cazador was one that came out by CrossGen way back in the day. Steve Epting on the art. I remember reading that quite fondly. That had a female lead as well. I quite like this. I love this setting. This is it's right after the Spanish War. On the seas, the British Royal Navy now is focusing more on taking out pirates. And of course, we got Monday Ryan, who is the daughter of a nefarious pirate. And she, of course, ends up getting pregnant from her, I guess, co-pirate, Lynn, who's sort of I guess he's an Asian pirate. And ultimately, throughout the 4 issues, it's really Monday Ryan on a quest for revenge, as you say, because this Captain, I guess, Napier of the British Navy, he inflicts some pain and suffering on Monday, and she loses her loved one. And here's this pregnant pirate, and she's caught in between those two emotions of love and hate. And it's very interesting because as the 9 months, as she gets closer and closer to her pregnancy, she's going through all kinds of emotions. But as the reader, we know that her hormones are changing and it's affecting her. And it even causes her to get a new bedmate and take on a new lover. And so, but it's almost symbolic. The closer her baby comes to being born, the closer she comes to it's the love of the child that overrides her hatred for revenge, and it plays well. And you see the change in her character. But as you said, the dialogue is excellent. Peter Milligan does a really good job, and because as the series progresses, you can see that she continues to have there continues to be misdirection. There continues to be, I mean, you got pirate scold, you got mutinies, you got death, you got betrayals, and all wrapped up in 4 issues. And you know, this is basically a 3 act movie, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's I won't. It even has a little bit of humor in it, which I thought was good. It's not necessarily the type of humor. It's not full bore humor that we're accustomed to maybe seeing in Pirates of the Caribbean and what have you. But this is entertaining. And again, as a credit to Bad Idea, you know, we got 4 issues here of just a good solid story, and that's why I like it. So yeah, this definitely is a recommend. Definitely a recommend. Because hey, as I said, a nice self-contained story, great. Uh, well scripted, well paced, and great art.
Yeah, and the other thing about these pirate books, like so often the establishment is the antagonist, right? Like you mentioned Monday, Ryan losing her husband. You know, she agrees to be intimate with this unscrupulous captain that's out there hunting pirates in order to, you know, the deal she makes. Yes, I'll you know, let you have your way with me, and in return you'll spare my husband, you know, the father of my child, so my child doesn't have to grow up fatherless. And he doesn't hesitate for a second to take advantage of Monday and then turn around and kill the husband anyway, the pirate Lynn, as you mentioned. So, you know, quickly he's established, as Captain Napier's established as the enemy, as the antagonist, as the bad guy, as it were, which is so interesting because, you know, in point of fact, I mean, they are thieves. They were breaking the law. Napier did have the blessing of the King of England, or you know, for whatever that's worth. But as often as is the case, and I'm sure it was true even back then. I know we kind of romanticize this era of pirates and what have you, but just because Napier's the supposed good guy doesn't mean, you know, he had any sort of morality, or you know, he followed the rules, or what have you. So, as is often the case in these books, you end up rooting for the pirate. So, in terms of the backups, the B sides, we get the save now, as well as the origin of some of those save now characters that we've have seen in some of the previous backups, and that will show up in the Save Now Kickstarter campaign book that is currently being kickstarted. Again, a reminder, it runs through about midday on Christmas Eve. So there's a link in the show notes. You can go click there and join. But yeah, really enjoyed those, and I'm sure it's providing context to some of what we're going to see in Save Now. So that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Appreciate you joining us as always. Tomorrow we'll be back with what at the time was a one-shot, passive aggressive, and then come to find out, Bad Idea pulled a fast one, and there was 2 different versions of the one-shot. There was the passive that some states got, and some other states got the aggressive. And a lot of people traded or mail ordered so they could have both, which I think that's what I did. I mail ordered from some other states that I knew, some shops from other states that I knew had the one that I didn't get from my local retailer. So that's coming up tomorrow on tomorrow's episode. As I said, written by Matt Kent, David Lapham art. So be sure to join us for that. Don't forget, if you're watching this on YouTube, on the Comic Source YouTube channel, appreciate your support there. Subscribe, ring the notification bell, all that stuff. But also head over to Rocky's channel, Comic Boom, Comic Space Boom, ! That's where we do our DC Spotlight every week, talk about all the DC books, engage with readers and people that watch the episode in the comment section. We really love to do that. So be sure you subscribe to Rocky's channel as well. Ring the notification bell so you know when new content comes out. And lastly, if you want to enjoy our content audio only, whether it's because you're driving or on the subway or what have you, just go to wherever you get your podcast, do a search for the Comic Source, and subscribe. So once again, we want to wish you happy holidays. Don't forget to go see Aquaman this weekend. And anything else you want to add, Rocky?
No. other than the fact that I actually, a lot of the people I spoke to that I'm familiar with, that they actually enjoyed. They've I know one guy saw a sneak preview. He enjoyed Aquaman, so it's a fun movie. So go see it. Let's support DC. God forbid.
Yeah, 100%. Can't wait to check it out myself. So that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Appreciate the support as always, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Catch you later.